And welcome to another edition of Toxicology, sponsored by Recovery Unplugged. I am Jason Cabello, and I am joined by my esteemed co-host, Joseph Gordo. How are you
Hey,
doing?
it's good to see you, Jason.
You too. It's cold in Austin tonight.
It is really cold in Austin. I know we have a lot of listeners that are from like the Northeast, and they probably hear like, "Oh my God, it's 20 degrees in Austin. Why are they freaking out?"
Yeah,
But
yeah. I'm
I think,
originally from.
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm originally from Chicago, so all my family from back home in Chicago. Whenever I say it's cold, and they're like, "It's above zero," and you're saying it's cold, you wimp.
Well, the issue in Texas is that we don't have all the stuff. Like nobody
Right.
has chains. There's no snowplows here. There's no salt trucks or whatever.
So last year during the ice storm, snowmageddon, whatever it was, the day when it was really frozen, we were out of some provisions. So I leave the house, I go to drive down the street, and I'm going up just a little incline, and I'm not like, I'm pretty calm. And then I see an SUV that's definitely made more for driving off road than my vehicle, and it's pointed for in the same direction as me and starts sliding past me going backwards. And that was an eye opener. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna drive 3 miles an hour and get home as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Hey, we didn't welcome everybody. Hi, everybody.
Welcome everybody. Hi.
Hello to our returning viewers. I see some people already popping off in the chat that I recognize y'all's names. Hey, Crystal, Sam, welcome back. I'm glad we didn't scare you off last time. But thank you to our if you're with us for the first time, welcome. If you're a returning listener slash viewer, thanks for coming back. Y'all know that we love to keep it real interactive here. So please, throughout the chat, keep it, feel free to type, talk amongst yourselves, ask questions. We've got our man, Greg Rose, on the ones and twos, keeping an eye on the chat. Maybe you'll get lucky and we'll put your comment on the screen and you'll be internet famous for a half second there. There you go. Crystal Renee, internet famous. We Carolinians are snow ignorant too. Yeah, man. The South.
Yeah.
We don't. I know
I
they have
believe
better.
I see Lee Platt on there. I know he's not snow ignorant. Lee Platt,
Lee Platt knows about the cold weather. Yes, he does. But
yeah,
he doesn't know about iguanas falling out of trees in Florida, does he?
this is true. This is true.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what
So,
yeah, what do we got going on tonight?
I don't know. We got a couple great guests. We got a couple great guests. We got a good topic for tonight. But I figured we'd start off. Jason, I'm going to ask you, and I'll ask everybody in the chat too. How old were you when you got sober? If you're sober, I know you're sober. I
I
was like in the chat. Yeah,
I am indeed clean and sober. I got clean when I was 42 years old.
right on, right on. So I got clean. The opposite. I was 24 when I got clean and sober. We got, and here in the chat, we got 30, we got 36, we got 52. Oh, wow. We got a comment from YouTube. We never get comments from YouTube. Hey, YouTube. 43. How did you feel getting sober at 42?
It was a
Like,
little weird because I'm kind of like I use pretty much every day for I would say a good 19 years, unless I was in treatment or in some sort of facility somewhere. I was using. So I kind of felt like a kid because I didn't have my shit together at all. I was like Arrested Development. You know what I mean? I was like
yeah.
a 20-something-year-old kid, not even, probably like a 17-year-old kid who just continued using and then ended up getting clean and was the oldest person in treatment, oldest person when I went to halfway sober living, and it was definitely challenging. Um, but I feel like I had a leg up as to I was a little bit, very little bit more mature than a lot of people that I lived with, and I think it lit like a fire under me to like try that much harder and to be like I'm not gonna fall into these traps that I've fallen into before. I'm gonna take recovery seriously, it's great to be able to hang out with the guys and everything, but like I'm going to go to my meetings, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get a job. And I was kind of like, not, I wouldn't say a loner, but I definitely took my recovery serious enough to where I wasn't going to rely on like the group of guys like, hey, we're all going to get clean together and go to meetings every day and this and that. Like I took charge of that.
Yeah, right on. And see, I remember being 24 and already thinking like, man, I blew it. My life has passed me by. I was the right age for like people I graduated high school with were like finishing master's degrees and stuff right about that age. And Facebook had just come out. So like I got out of treatment and like went on Facebook and was like, this dude's a doctor already. And I just got out of rehab, But anyway, people get sober. People enter into recovery in at all different stages of life, right? I have a good friend, Wyle, who he has never taken a drink or a drug because of growing up around AA people like me and his mom. So he went to World Convention one time and picked up like a 22-year chip, even though but anyway, that's not the point. Let's get to our guests before I just keep rambling on. So we have two fantastic guests joining us today. First off, we have Pam. Pam is a person in long-term recovery, from South Florida. We're not going to disclose exactly where for her own safety and privacy. And I quote, she is a really cool chick, and we are so lucky to have her tonight. Welcome, Pam.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
So we talked about this before the show, right? I wasn't going to introduce you with your age. We were going to let you do it. So Pam, how old were you when you entered into a life of recovery?
53.
53 years old.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now let's bring on our second guest so that we can kind of start to interact here. Our next guest is a gentleman, native Austinite from Austin, Texas. He's kind of famous around here. His name's Tyler Watkins. He's been in recovery since 2014, and he is the lead strategist at ASP Branding. Tyler, 2 questions for you. How old were you when you got sober?
17.
And second question, what does ASP stand for?
That stands for Atomic Souls Productions. We're somewhat of a marketing agency and, branding consultants.
Excellent. Very cool. Very cool.
Very glad to be here.
Yeah. So welcome, you guys. Thank you for taking your time out this evening to join us on the show. And I love that we've got this diversity going right now. We've got someone who got sober in their 50s, someone who got sober in their 40s, someone who got sober in their 20s, that's me, and then someone who got sober as a teenager. And one of the things that we love to do on this show is kind of show a broad spectrum to folks. The recovery doesn't just look like one thing or one way. And hopefully we'll accomplish that tonight. I'm very confident about it. So first, I'm just going to give you guys the floor. Tyler, why don't you tell us a little bit about, just give us a little how you got into recovery, a little story. Just, what was going on? How'd you get here? What kind of recovery do you practice? All that stuff.
Yeah, totally. Well, I don't know if you remember, Joseph, but I had we'd crossed paths. I was probably 16 whenever the idea of not doing drugs, ever came into play. And that didn't last.
I do remember, but I'm not allowed to bring it up first.
Yeah. Man of integrity right there. But it got really bad, as a lot of us can relate. And so when the time came to get sober, it was evident that like it was absolutely time, and so being young wasn't really much of an issue for me as far as like qualifying myself, whether I needed to get into recovery or not. It was like, I am so exhausted and alone and scared. And, being introduced to recovery by a couple people prior, I knew that there was like an avenue to take to stop doing what I was doing. And at this point, at 17, I had no idea how to do that. And so coming in at 17, man, it was all the reason to, all the determination, all the all the willingness that you could think to have. And it was a super interesting experience because Jason, you were talking about I was the oldest, and anywhere I went, and I was the youngest for like some years. I was the youngest, and so that was really interesting. Coming into recovery, I picked up 6 months, and my high school class picked up their diploma. And so like that's kind of the position that I was in, but.
So was that kind of nice though? Like I know that whenever I've been in groups and we had a youngin come in, right? They sort of automatically became like the mascot, and everybody loved them and wanted to take care of them like right out the gate. Was that your experience?
Absolutely. I mean, it was like something that you had never seen, at least consistently. It's unfortunately extremely common now, with where the drug use and epidemic and all that has like entered into the lives of younger people. But yeah, I mean, I kept all the time getting, I wouldn't even call them compliments, but just shown some pretty good treatment by the majority of people just off being young, and they were patting me on the back and stuff. So yeah.
So let's go over to Pam. Pam, tell us real quick, just kind of your how did you get here story.
The Reader's Digest version.
Yeah, the Reader's Digest.
I went to go play cards one day at my friend's house, which was a weekly event. Opened the door to a semicircle of about 15 of my friends and family and said, "This is an intervention." And found myself within the next few hours at Recovery Unplugged, where I went to my rehab, and that afforded me the pause that I was not able to give myself, because I went to bed every night and I wasn't using the next day, and that was how it was going to be. And unfortunately, I didn't have the tools. Someone just said in the chat, I didn't have the tools I have now. I didn't know that thoughts weren't facts, and I didn't know that once I thought I needed to go pick up, that there was another option to say, yeah, thanks for sharing, but shut the fuck up. We're not going to go do that. So I got the pause finally in my experience at Recovery Unplugged, and then I found the fellowship that works for me, and I went. I took the suggestions, man. I did 90 and 90 and 90 and 90 and 180 and 90, and I threw myself into my fellowship and recovery. I dove in fingernails first, and I just dove deep all the way in, and I'm by the grace of God, my higher power, I have a beautiful recovery, and I'm clean today, and I'm living a life that I had once thought was impossible to live. I really believed that life as I knew it was over, and I was never going to experience joy in life again, and I was going to die a using addict. And I believed that, and it's just not the case. Recovery is possible for anybody at any point, at any time. You just got to make the decision that this is what you want, and it's what I want. That's why I stay.
Awesome. Now, so in the rooms, we call it the white chip wonder, right? So for you, Pam, was that your first time going to treatment, your first time trying to get
I
your
don't
shit
want to.
together?
Yeah, I do hear the term white term wonder. So I guess up until and just for today, I'm a white chip wonder. I had never done anything with any type of trying to get clean. I have to be honest. My real throes of my addiction didn't start, although I started smoking pot at 12. So I'd always dabbled in drugs, but it was something I stopped the marijuana after quite some time. And then I got introduced to pain pills, and I dabbled a bit, but I would say it was the last 10 years of my addiction where it was absolutely out of control. And that's when I needed help, and I was able to get it and change my whole life, and make some connections. And I see some people that are in the room that came to support me tonight, and the relationships that I've built here, and just being in recovery, man. It really is like it's a new way to live, and I dig it. Like I look back and go, so what was fun about walking around in my pajamas for 8 days without taking a shower and spending thousands of dollars on narcotics? I'm sorry, I missed the fun there. So it definitely crossed over from me using drugs to drugs using me. And man, I'm so glad that I found recovery, because this is the way I want to die a clean addict, because I'm well aware I'm going to be an addict till the day I die. I just can make the choice every day not to pick up.
Love it. We're glad you're here, Pam. We're glad you made it and that you're a white chip wonder.
Thank you.
So, I mean, it seems like there's going to be unique challenges at every stage of recovery, or recovery at whatever stage of life that you're on. Like, in listening to you guys talk just now, right? Tyler was saying, like, I wasn't sure if I needed to be here. I wasn't sure if I qualified yet. Right. And then Pam, kind of what I heard you say is like, I've lived my whole life this way. Like, how am I supposed to live it different? Right. So, I mean, just to whoever, right? Even Jason, hop in. Like, what do you guys think are some unique things about the age that you got sober, like challenges that people might not think about?
Can I ask really quick, what does white chip wonder mean? I never heard that before.
It's an NA thing.
It means that I went in and picked up my first white key tag the day I surrendered. And up until now, like I said, just for today, I've never had to pick up another.
Go pick up another one? That's badass.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Man.
So Austin is an AA town. So we have the silver, what are desire chips?
It is
we call them desire chips.
Oh,
Yeah.
believe me, my NA is like, I'm clean. Clean. But, I get that everybody's path is different, and whatever works for anybody is
we have
super
all
cool.
different types of fellowships here and all different types of colors. That's for sure. And everyone's welcome. That's a fact.
Everybody.
So I think it's important for, maybe some of the viewers at home that aren't familiar with when we, some people say clean, some people will say sober, some people say recovery. It's all the same thing. Unfortunately, it gets a little divisive depending in what groups you run in. But the longer you come around, you will find that there are more people who really are just there to help than to argue about nomenclature. It happens, but
we should do like a 12-step 101 episode someday. Like, for all these things that probably people, because like, if y'all are like me, right? Like, I never want to admit I don't know something, right? Like, much respect to Tyler for asking, like, what is that? I don't know.
No, honestly, I would have pretended like I knew.
I will sit down and shut up and I'll just listen, and I'll be looking for context clues until I think I know what I'm hearing. And I think probably a lot of people, walk into the rooms and they hear these words like the rooms and don't know what we're talking about. Right?
Yeah.
And it's always good to remember that no one really knows what we're talking about. And, it's more often than not, we do have to explain it in like layman terms,
Yeah.
Well, like, even just before we started, right? We have a new team member who's joining on the production side today. And someone asked her, when she got clean, and I was like, "Oh, you're a normie." And she was like, "What is that? Is that what you call us?"
Yeah.
Not derogatory. We're all jealous.
Yeah.
I'm not, man. I wouldn't change being an addict for anything. I'm grateful I'm an addict.
It's pretty interesting to like even cross over to that, cross over the threshold into that, Pam, like, like it is better and you don't want it, whereas like at first, a lot of people get scared and then maybe even have reservations, but they see that like the quality of life as we live it today is not only better than what it was prior to getting in recovery, but it's better when we don't, better than when we don't actively participate in recovery, continue to find something here that we like.
Absolutely.
Well, without recovery, I would have never found, the spiritual principles and filled myself up with, I don't know if I don't want to talk like about rooms. I don't know like what, but the 12 steps,
whatever.
12 steps and 12 traditions are what I live my life by. And I do my best on a daily basis to practice those principles in all my affairs. And I would have never, ever found those blueprints had I not been an addict seeking recovery. And now that I'm on the other side, per se, where active addiction is not part of my life, but now because of active addiction and finding recovery, I get to be in a fellowship that has given me these beautiful, beautiful things to aspire to and to bring into my life and to share with people in and out of the rooms. Like, I wouldn't trade it. If I could just be a normie, having never been an addict, but not being where I'm at and the journey I'm on now, if I was given the two options, I would pick being an addict every time. Not an addict that stays in active addiction. No, then I would definitely pick a normie. But if the choice is an addict who has found and is living a life of recovery versus a person that's just not an addict all day.
Yeah, because Tyler and I, we hang out together and we go skateboarding a lot, and we talk a lot, and it's like it's amazing to see somebody who's 24 years old and just like has this great self-awareness, has his shit together, and it's just like the average 24-year-old doesn't do that kind of reflection and work on themselves. I'm generalizing here, but for somebody to start working on yourself that young, like you get the drug. Okay, so for people who might not know, you get the drugs out of the way or the alcohol out of the way or whatever the underlying the first issue is out of the way, right? And then you start doing work on yourself. And then you start finding out these strengths and weaknesses about yourself. You work on the weaknesses and rely on your strengths. And for somebody that young to come in, do that work, and now just be like a pillar of society. Like what do you feel about that, Tyler? Do you feel like you had a leg up doing all that work on yourself so young?
Yeah. And I didn't see that until recently, because I think, you come in and when you're younger, and Jason, you probably said this to the younger crowd, like, hey, get it now because, you only get older. And that's all I heard. Right.
Right.
Come, 7 years later now, I can't like there's like an endless amount of gratitude for the fact that I was in a position to be all the way at the bottom and broken down and willing enough, to go through the process of spiritual development and all that. And at the same time, I'm physically and mentally developing as well. I didn't have facial hair coming into recovery at all.
Yeah.
Me either.
Yeah. And so I see it now at 24, very clear, like a lot more clearly. And, it's one of those things like you look back and you're like, wow, these people were right, and you kind of get a good idea of what the time is like and has been like. So.
Well, you know what? I love the way how like you're 24 now with 7 years sober, and I was 24 when I got sober, right? And I just think about like
I was just getting started at 24.
Yeah. But like, at 24, I already thought like I am miles behind my peers, like the guys that I graduated high school with, right? Like they're getting masters, they're becoming doctors, and I just picked up a 30-day key tag, right? Whereas like you on the flip side at 24, I imagine, right, that like you're probably miles ahead of the guys you went to high school with that aren't addicts or alcoholics, but just kind of follow traditional paths, right? Like they may have degrees, but you've had life experience and
it's all
you own your own business.
I think, everyone's path is different and everything happens for a reason. I see a lot of my high school alumni very successful now and like all to the better, for them, and congratulations to where their life took them, but one thing that, I do know is this path where I'm able to continue to grow spiritually, mentally, and all of that, emotionally, is something that not most people get to experience. So regardless of what inspiration comes out of that, whether it's business or new hobbies or new friendships or whatever, I don't think most, and I guess today it's a little bit differently given like with the web and the accessibility of like learning new practices. But I think most people, regardless of age, don't get to do what we do. And so I think
as far as like the spiritual work,
exactly, like no one even thinks to take a look at themselves and think maybe I'm the problem and not you. Most people don't get to do that or don't even think to do that, so I think at any point in our lives, whether we're just getting started at 13 or getting done at 17 or getting done at 50 something, you know, we get the opportunity to see where life will take us if we do this, no matter the age, that most people just don't get to do.
Yeah. Which you
and
got a point, like sometimes like I'll be talking to like you know, my wife, she's a normie and most of her friends are normies. We have a lot of normie friends. And sometimes I'll say something to them and they'll be like, "Oh my God, you're so wise. Like that's so smart." It's like I heard that in the back of a church with a crappy cup of coffee and some drugs at it. You know what I mean? Like stuff that we hear all the time that's very like practical wisdom almost.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Jason,
absolutely.
I cut you off.
No, I was just going to say, so on the opposite end of the spectrum from Tyler, you know, me getting clean at 42, I had all these things that I thought were just fundamental parts of me that I couldn't get rid of. Like I can start things and never finish them. You know, and then once I realized that I could change these things about me, you know, I could change these things about myself that I thought were just the way it is, you know, like you know, going back to school at 43 and finding a new passion and discovering that I can do, you know, I can do things that I put my mind to, and I can work on myself, and I'm not destined to be miserable. It was like, you know, that awakening for me was just incredible. So like when I meet somebody new who's coming in and they're in their 30s and 40s or even their teens, you know, I'm just like, the best days are not behind you. And that's like that's the best part about this whole thing, is just like the best days are not behind you. You have this,
No
no
matter
matter
what.
where you are, you have this amazing life to look forward to.
So, you know, I think so. Everybody went to treatment, right? Now treatment is not it's not obligatory to be part of the path to recovery. I think everybody here went to treatment, right? So, what do you guys think about like while you were in treatment? Like, were you treated any differently than the other, you know, than other age groups, like almost like age specific to you? Or was there anything that you wish had been different in treatment or that was more challenging for you in treatment versus like everybody else? Does that make sense?
I mean, I know for me personally, it just really was a non-issue for me. I don't know how other people my age feel going into treatment. It may, you know, it never even like, I didn't feel like, oh, I'm a loser, I'm the oldest one here. Like, I think there actually was maybe someone that was older than me, or he was just so ill from his disease that he might have looked a million years old and he wasn't. But I was definitely, if not the oldest, close to it. But it didn't even really occur to me, like, you know, I went to treatment like thinking everybody else was wrong, because I wasn't an addict. I was just somebody that used drugs, and I actually went to treatment, you know, just to please the people that, well, the honest truth is, at my intervention, they were real smart, and it was actually my son that called the intervention and reached out to some friends and said, we got to do something because my mom's gonna die. So because my children were there, that's the only reason I went. Because I don't know, are we allowed to curse on here?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I literally, on the tip of my tongue, I was going to tell everyone in that room to truly go fuck themselves. Because I'd watched enough intervention that I was going to say, don't read me your story. You're not going to take my phone call. I can't come to your house. I was like, fuck, I'm not going. But before my intervention got started, the truth of the matter is my son walked over me before it really got started and said, Mommy, please do this. So I literally looked out to the crowd and I went, it's a wrap. I'll do it. I'll fucking go.
Just stop. Just don't talk to me. Let's just go.
Exactly. I don't want to hear it. And so I didn't go because I thought I needed it. Yeah. I find out later I desperately needed it, but I went and didn't went. I went. I wouldn't say it was unwillingly, but I thought these guys are so stupid. Like, I do not need this. I'm not an addict. I mean, I use drugs. And I can't stop day in and day out, but I'm certainly not a drug addict. And, you know, I do find that coming into recovery later and being a person that is so blessed with the things that I have, it's a real hard pill to swallow, that you're an addict when you've got the house, you've got the car, you've got the jewelry, you've got the pocketbooks. Like, I didn't live under a bridge, don't know what it's like to have the lights turned out. I am so blessed that financially I was put in a position, not of my own doing, but I was in a position where it was real hard for me to believe that I was this thing called an addict, and not so much because this thing was lesser than me. It's just I obviously couldn't be that. I didn't not have the things that I thought if you were an addict, you didn't have these certain material things. So
see, and I've always been real grateful that like I got fucked up like straight out of high school, right? So I never had much to lose. And when I got sober at 24, like I had nothing. I had I had a trash bag full of clothes and I had a guitar, and that was about it. But
you had a guitar, man. You had your shit together.
I had a guitar. Yeah.
It was the one right above him.
Yeah.
No. Actually, it's in the garage. Anyway. But I remember, and I still am like grateful because that put me in a position where like I didn't have the excuses of like I got to get home to my family, I got to go pay a mortgage, I got to handle this, I got to handle that. Like the only thing I had to worry about was not getting high, but like I went to treatment a bunch, and I was always pushed by something else, right? So either like I got arrested and I had to sign a PR bond that said I would go straight to rehab. I was homeless and my family said, well, we'll take you to rehab, whatever. It was only the last time that I actually said like, okay, like I would like to go to rehab. Mm-hmm. Tyler, I'm curious about you, man. Like how did it go down? Like I would assume at 16, 17, someone had to intervene.
17 for sure. What's really funny? I look back at my treatment and it was a blast because I was so excited to not be getting fucked up. And they gave me every opportunity to make sure I don't get fucked up, working with a sponsor, giving me the therapy, everything that I needed. But as Pam, as you were talking, I was thinking like, cause I still go to the treatment center that I got sober at, because I think there's a massive need to be there for these adolescents. And just like my first attempt at getting sober, I see it all the time about like what they want to accomplish still, like no one has any idea about taxes, when they're an adolescent. They don't have an understanding of the world. They just know the streets. They know gang banging, they know what fighting for yourself looks like, so whenever it's like coming into a position of doing better, they don't need any help because maybe the resources aren't exhausted yet, because that's something I was grateful for. At 17, I had all my resources exhausted. Like I knew that there wasn't anything else to try. There wasn't anything else to look forward to because I was done. I was ready. I was tired. And so that's what I see a lot with the people who come in, like the teens that come into, recovery. They think they don't need help. And so it's like, that's the mindset that we're dealing with, because I know for a fact that I needed help, but I didn't know that the first time. I thought it would just get better. Surely this is just an episode, like a long episode, but surely this is an episode, and it'll get better. And I had to experience that it wasn't just an episode. I was dealing with something way beyond my understanding. And I had to get beat up. But I see it all the time. Like, the kids that I talk to, man, they don't have any idea what leveling your pride, even means, or how to spell it. You know what I mean?
Working with adolescents at the treatment center where you and I met, was the hardest job I've had in addiction, like working with teenagers. And part of it was because a lot of them had been set up to fail from the beginning. Some of the stories that I heard about them, getting high with their parents when they were 8 years old and things like that. But I remember always loving when the kid would walk in, and it's going to sound bad, but the kids that walked in and were already doing IV heroin, I was like, this kid might know it's bad enough to stop. Because, the kids that I worked with back then, you know, the majority of the ones that were like, tell me what to do, like, please, was the IV heroin kids. Cause like what you made me think of it, Tyler, cause you're like, I knew there was nothing else. Like I was done. So it was almost like you know, going that deep that early was almost like a blessing for them, because they were the ones that showed up to group and did what was asked and participated, because they had you know, they'd seen enough.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So to those who might not be familiar with, you know, what we talk about when we're talking about hitting a bottom, hitting rock bottom, you hear it all the time. And I don't think anybody will disagree that that is completely subjective of where your rock bottom is. You know, it could be, you know, me overdosed, almost died a couple of times, didn't even have a guitar, and I had half a garbage bag full of clothes. And then, you know, somebody could want somebody's overdrafting their bank account could be their bottom. You know what I mean? It's completely subjective. You don't have to, you know, live under a bridge. You don't have to overdose. You don't have to experience homelessness to say this is not where I want to be. I need to get help. You know, I think that's something very important, because I know a lot of people. I'm trying to help a friend of mine right now, an old friend of mine who reached out to me because his son is struggling, and he's just like, you know, he doesn't feel like he's that bad because he can come home anytime. You know, he has a couple of dollars, he can still make it to his job, and you know, it's really hard to get that across to people sometimes, unfortunately.
Well, I know for me, my bottom was more spiritual than anything else. You know, like I had all the bad stuff happen. You know, the living in the car, the getting arrested, the dope sick and jail stuff. Like I was okay with all of it. You know, it was the spiritual thing that was the bottom for me.
For me, honestly, it was I was at this point where I was nickel and diming for so long that I never had enough money to like have a steady supply, and there was at one point where I had enough heroin to keep me going for a while, and it just wasn't working anymore. Like, and I felt like I had been betrayed by like my God, essentially. Like the only thing I ever gave anything wholeheartedly to totally turned its back on me, and now it's not working anymore, and it's not making me feel the way I used to, and that was pretty much my bottom.
Someone in the chat said all about those yets. Pam, you mentioned those yets earlier. You want to talk about that some?
Yeah, because that was one of my sponsees.
Oh, that's your sponsee.
She's amazing.
She softballed one to you.
Yeah, and you know, I was sitting here thinking, like, I gotta call it how I see it. I think it's a lot easier to come into recovery later in life. Like when I see someone come in at 17, like this handsome dude in front of that glowing keyboard, like and it's funny because the sponsee that just said that has her first sponsee, so I have my first grand sponsee.
Nice.
And she's 17. And
wow.
I don't know if she's on or not, but and I think about, dude, if I got here at 17 and you know, I'm in a Just for Today program, but I also have a brain. And yeah, it is just for today because that is all we really have. But let's be realistic. We do look into our future to a certain extent. And the bottom line is, if I was thinking at 17, I'm never going to have a drink again. I'm never going to hit a joint in the rest of my life. Like, I know we got to look at it in a Just for Today way. But like I said, you know, we all have thoughts. Our minds do future trip a little bit and go in the past a bit. I can't imagine that. And, you know, Tyler, correct me if I'm wrong, but at 17, it's got to hit you sometimes. Like when you're deciding to get into recovery, you got to stay in the now. But isn't it sometimes thinking about like, dude, I'm just 17. Like for me, coming in at 53, you know, we were talking about, I don't remember what actor it was that you said, was it Anthony Hopkins that
yeah.
You know, we were talking about that when he's offered drugs. He says, no, thanks, I've had enough. And he's not talking about at that particular party. He's talking about he did his 20,000 pounds of coke. So me coming in at 53, like as much as I sometimes thought, well, I'll never like toast champagne at someone's wedding. Like it was mind boggling to me. Now, if I try to bring that down and go back like 4 decades earlier than that and go, wow, I really, my hat is off to people that come into recovery and at a early age there is a level of maturity needed to grasp that I don't want to live that other way. Like, this may be hard, and there might be parts about it that suck, but on a scale, I want to live a life that's clean and healthy. And I mean, people that come in young and stay, or at least know to come back, have my biggest respect and admiration to choose this way of life, because it is a choice. And I don't think too many people that are immature, I know people that are older and aren't mature enough, don't always make it. So someone young that comes in and sticks and stays is like, we're all miracles, but to me that's like a mind-blowing miracle.
Yeah.
So, Tyler, thank you for coming and staying and showing me that it can be done one day at a time for a lot of days in a row. It's one of my favorite things to say, but I really mean it. Like, thank you.
Well, I'm appreciative of this program and seeing everybody like you, Pam, and Joseph, and meeting people like Jason and whatnot. It's truly a beautiful thing. What's funny is like the first time I got introduced to this stuff, I was like, nah, I don't need that. I want to drink at my dad's wedding. And at this point, my dad was single. He wasn't even in a relationship yet. And but that's where I went. And so, whenever you're 17 or 15 or 16, getting sober, you got to turn 21 one day. And
what was that like? Turning 21.
I'll tell you exactly what that was like here in a second. I was probably on I was a definitely just for today person. I mean, I was so glad not to be cold. Back in 2014, it was cold in December here in Austin, Texas. And, I had everything, or I had a muscle shirt and like some gym shorts, and that's about it as far as my inventory was concerned. And so whenever I got into treatment this time around, it was like I knew I had a problem for sure, without a doubt. And I also knew I had a solution. And so regardless of age, 13, 15, 70, if you got a problem, there's a solution here. And qualify yourself and let yourself in. Because we're here, right? So when I was probably operating on like every 2 week basis, right? Like 2 weeks from now is probably as far as I'm thinking, and it's not even thinking about important stuff. I'm just doing what I need to stay sober, and it was working. And 21, what an interesting time. Let me tell you about the miracle of this opportunity that we all have, no matter the age. Is I was in Georgia. On a business trip selling vape juice by myself. And
that was a great sentence, by the way. I was in Georgia by myself.
Living the life. Okay. And I was by myself. No one was around me, and I was in Georgia, and it was nighttime, and it was I turned 21. And of course, I think the natural thought is if I wanted to, I could buy alcohol right now. This is cool. But not once did I have any inclination to actually go get alcohol. Obviously, the fact was I'm sober and 21 and I'm not drinking. This is freaking awesome. And that's seriously about as far as it went. No one would have known for about 2 weeks that I drank, because they would have found out without me coming back home, really quick. But, it was super interesting. To be honest, it was just like another day, man. It was just like another day.
How cool is that though? Your experience prior to getting sober, is something that you can use to help people, right? I was 16, I was 17, I was doing what you did. But then also after you got sober, being able to tell people and I turned, you added to the experience you have to share to people by, not drinking that night. Right.
Yeah.
And you know what? I am 37. There is alcohol. I can see 2 bottles of whiskey right out my little office door right here. And I could have a drink and no one would know. Right? I don't think my life would burn to the ground. But then I ask myself, right, Joseph, have you ever had a drink? I'm frankly, I'm not interested in a drink. I'm interested in oblivion.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then it's real easy to be like, you know what? No. Right?
See, that's how I
Go ahead,
know I'm
Jason.
an addict through and through, because walking past a bottle of whiskey never turns my head. Nothing like that ever turns my head. It's me driving past somebody under a bridge nodding out that still catches my eye and
You're like,
says,
yeah.
that is the luckiest man in the world right now. And I shit you not, like I see that, and it's still, there is something that is still attractive to me about that. So that's why I continue to do the work, and that's what keeps in my head. That's what keeps it fresh in my mind to know, like, I could never, like that. I have lost my privileges when it comes to anything like that, because that's where I'll be, and then I'll have the opportunity to experience how attractive that is once again if I lose sight of my course.
Yep.
So I have a question for Pam. I got sober with nobody, nothing, right? You got sober and were in a committed relationship, right? How was that? Like, because you changed a lot in early recovery, right? So, like, tell me some about that, because I don't think
really
Tyler or
interesting.
Jason had to deal with that either.
Yeah, I don't really, doesn't really come up that I talk about that much. And I know he's listening from another part of the house. Hi, babe. Yeah, like I
Is
just
it the guy? Is he the one that keeps on saying "I love you" in the chat? Yeah.
No, those are just my fans, people. No, yeah, babe, you can say you love me in the chat. It is not lost on me how blessed I am that not only I got clean, but my partner got clean, and we both stayed. We both are one chip wonders. He dabbled a little bit in the other fellowship years earlier in his life, and he did have some abstinence in his life, but he was never in recovery. And he's not in as deep as I'm in, because if you haven't realized, it can be a little extra. Like when I do something, I do it. Like I don't just get blue hair, I get blue nails and blue lips. Like I'm an addict through and through.
You don't buy
Everything
just
I
one
do, I
cookie
want
jar.
it all. Sorry?
I said you don't buy just one cookie jar.
Yep.
Oh, are those cookie jars
you're
back
only
there?
You're only seeing a
Jesus.
slice. They span. Forget about it.
How many of those are filled with the cremated remains of your enemies?
That's a secret for only me to know. But if you come to my house, I'll show you. But the fact that we both and you know what, he was like a byproduct of the intervention, because he was actually on the other side of the door when I got there, and the first thing he said to me is, "Babe, I didn't know they were doing it," which is true, because a friend of ours, knowing that if he knew, he would have he knew I was gonna freak. So they asked if he could come help them build some furniture. So he got picked up by one of the friends that drove him to the intervention, and was like, "We're having an intervention for Pam." So, but when it started, I said I was going. I go, "But wait a minute, if I'm going, he has to fucking go, because he's an addict and I use with him. So like, I'm not going to do this, and he doesn't have to go." So he went, and I'm so blessed, because there's no way if when I got out he was still using or was started. There's no way in early recovery. I don't see how anybody can come into recovery if the partner they live with is using and be able to do it. And maybe people can, but it's not a reality for me. Like I have to live in reality. I know if my partner was using the day I got home, all bets would have been off. In fact, it's interesting because my story is a little weird about my experience at Recovery Unplugged, where he went on to an IOP. I stayed in the detox because initially I was going to stay on some maintenance medication, which I am not on. But so I didn't see Joe till we got reunited the day that our rehab experience was over, and I was like ready just to go home, get in my own shower, my own bed, see my dogs. And I wasn't doing anything, and it was him having been in the IOP, and I guess it was really pounded into him When you get out, go to a meeting, go to a meeting, go to a meeting, go to a meeting. So when we reunited in the parking lot, he's like, well, we got to go to a meeting today. And I was like, go to a what? I'm going home. And he's like, no, we really got to go to a meeting today. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And you know what? I got to tell you, I really owe a lot of my recovery to Joe making that decision that we were hitting a meeting right hot. We were hitting a meeting. And we went to one that evening. And then the next day we went to our next meeting, which became one of my original home groups. And we went to that meeting and then the one in the evening, but the daytime meeting every single day thereafter. And both got into our recovery. And it's amazing, for one person to pick up be a white key tag wonder or pick one up and do it for a minute or two. But then to have the two people go in the same exact day and pick up that key tag and make a choice to not pick up a mood or mind altering substance again moving forward, it's pretty monumentous. Like, it's pretty spectacular that we both are doing this together, and we do very different recovery, and that's okay. Early on, I definitely wanted to run his program. He wasn't doing it my way. He wasn't doing it fast enough. Wasn't calling a sponsor. Wasn't doing step work the way I was doing it, and blah, 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 blah. And I really had to temper myself and pull back and realize he's not fucking picking up. Okay. That's what he is doing. And that's the one thing that we can't argue with. And he is in recovery, but he does it at his pace and he does it the way he sees fit. I still hit a minimum just about of a meeting a day, more than likely two. We have a really big Zoom family and a brick and mortar that I'm a GSR of. I'm involved in my recovery. Like, it is my primary purpose to help the addict that's still suffering. Like, I'm so fortunate that I don't work. I did just start a little business with a friend, but it's something I want to do. I don't have to do it to maintain my lifestyle. So I'm so blessed that I get to spend my days in recovery, man, and talking about the message of recovery and helping sick and suffering addicts. And they help me by telling me their experience. And I'm pumped up about it, man. If you can't tell, like, I love recovery. Recovery has given me a reason to live. I was a mom for many, many years, which I still am. I thank you, God, that I still am a mother. I have a special needs child, so I had a very challenging being a mom, and it took a lot of me, but my children are grown now. And I was, you doing drugs and staying in the bedroom in my pajamas, and I didn't have a purpose. I didn't have a reason to, didn't care about it anymore. So not only did recovery give me the opportunity to put the drugs down, but it gave me a reason. I'm doing something really important. And, I don't get a paycheck for it. And I didn't go to school. I don't have any letters after my name. And I actually was considering going back. And thank God for the sponsor that I have, because I called her. At first, she was encouraging me to go to school. And then I really do work with quite a few sponsees, and I love them, and they love me, and they give me so much. And I said to her one day, I said, I really don't want to punch anybody's time clock. I don't need to get a paycheck, and I don't want to really go to work. And all I'm doing, though, is being a sponsor and helping people in the rooms. And she said, don't you ever say that again, but that's all you're doing. Because my God found it perfect fit for me in my circumstance, that I don't have to punch a time clock, but that doesn't mean what I'm giving back and what I'm doing isn't powerful stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm so blessed. I get to be in recovery. Like, that's my job. My job is my recovery and helping addicts that still are sick and suffering. I'm so blessed.
That's amazing. So we're getting towards the end of our time today. Before we start wrapping it up, I do want to give the opportunity, anybody who's in the chat who's got a question for any one of our panelists today, please feel free. Now's the time where we can kind of get to some questions, for sure. So let's start getting into some of these kind of closing thoughts. And I think normally we just ask kind of the guests, but I think because we're all from different decades of getting sober or recovered or clean or whatever you want to say. Thank you, Greg. Let's go over to Tyler. Right now is your opportunity, right? We've got this platform. What's what's something that you would want to say to someone who's very much where you were 7 years ago? You know, not old enough yet, you know.
First of all, is you have no idea what's coming. That's where I'd start. And, you know, just keeping it as simple as possible. If you have a problem, there is a solution, and there's room for you here, and you're not alone. And it's super fucking cool. And it's really fucking cool.
All right, Jason, somewhere out there in Facebook land, there's a lonely 43-year-old, 42?
42.
There's a lonely 42-year-old, you know, who doesn't think he can get sober. He thinks 42 is too old. What you got?
Well, for me, it wasn't even that I was too old to get off drugs. It was, what do I have to look forward to then, right? Like that was the only thing that I had spent any time on. I didn't have anything. I didn't have an education. I didn't have any money. So, it took me getting to be, and I always say this, like it took me accepting the fact, like, as long as I stay clean, I don't care if, like, I will be happy if I just get a job like working at Whole Foods and having a studio apartment and just being able to get up in the morning and not be dope sick. That was the only thing that really kept me going, was that I did not want to be dope sick. So then I got the drugs out of the way, and then little by slowly I started putting this life together. And now it's like, I used to hate when people say that you're going to have a life beyond your wildest dreams. And like, I just thought it was so cheesy, and these people were trying to sell me something. But when it comes to fruition, and like, I look back now and say, like, man, if I could have showed myself a picture of where I would be if I just got my shit together, like, I would never have believed it. There is no way you could have told me that I'd be like living in Austin, Texas, being in a great relationship, working on documentaries and music videos. Like, there's no way I would have believed it. And it's just like, yeah. As simple as the best days are not behind you. You have a wonderful life ahead of you if you just give yourself the opportunity.
I just had this vision of current Jason going in a time machine and showing past Jason the wallpaper and being like, this could be your wallpaper if you just get some.
Past Jason would have mugged present Jason.
Hell yeah.
Pam, your turn. Somewhere out there's a 53-year-old woman or man who for some reason doesn't think that they can do this. What you got?
Cut the bullshit. Stop it. You can do it. Like, you can do it. Like, stop listening to old stupid tapes that aren't true. Put some new thoughts in there. Be open. Be willing to just get honest with yourself. Find out who you are, and there's such a better way to live. And if you're gonna live, if you're 53 and you're gonna live to 54 and kick the bucket, how about that last year be filled with spiritual health and wholeness and friends and happiness and joy? How about that? If you got 1 year left, like, okay, you got 1 year, you're gonna die at 54. Die happy and clean. Maybe you'll get 3 or 40 years out of life after that. Maybe.
You get into recovery and you get to hang out with a ragtag group of misfits like this. You know what I mean? It's not, you don't meet a bunch of boring people when you put yourself into it.
Nobody I'd rather hang than with you fucking drug addicts. Nobody.
Amen. Yep.
Bunch of dope fiends, man. I love it. You know what's weird? Because sometimes I end up in a room full of normies, and like, because like with us, no matter how you look, who you are, young, old, male, female, black, white, Hispanic, you walk into the 12-step room or any recovery room, and like at the very least, we can exchange a couple war stories to start to break the ice, right? Like, we know we've got that in common. And I find myself sometimes surrounded by normies, and I'm like, okay, should I bring up books? Oh no, what if they don't read books? Should I bring up video games? What if no? They might not be into that. Like, I don't have a starting point with them. You know what I mean? Like, you got to guess at it.
It's like you could gauge the crowd. Like, do I bring up shooting toilet water up into this
Yeah,
crowd, or
yeah,
do I leave
no,
that one in
no.
my back pocket?
Oh man, you ever drop a nugget like that in a room full of normies and you laugh and it's just dead silence?
Yep.
Yeah, I've learned
There
better.
there was a line in the office where somebody said, "This is as good as smoking crack," and then the guy's like, "Anybody who says that obviously never smoked crack before." It's like one of those things.
So we do have a couple questions in the chat to get through. First off, I'd like to point out that Jamie Anderson commented so much in the chat that Facebook kicked him off, and he has to now chat on the YouTube, which I didn't even know was a thing.
And he's a she, and that's my sponsee.
Oh, Jamie, sorry. I grew up in South
Pronouns,
Texas.
Joseph.
I think Jaime, Jamie.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So we did get a question. Robert Anthony said, "What keeps you in the program?" Which I guess is like, everybody here has a certain amount of time sober. I don't think anybody here's a newcomer anymore. So what keeps y'all motivated to still do this work?
I can keep it really short.
Yeah.
I think no matter how long I've had, it feels like a long journey. It's a long, awesome journey. There's like always more to discover. I think the truth is like, as I develop and my spirituality develops, like the main problem of selfishness that, ends up taking people back out, that also develops. So there's plenty of content to work on literally at all times. And when I'm not doing the program, whether I'm fucked up or not, if I'm not doing the program, it doesn't look so hot. But when I am doing the program, it looks pretty good. So just like doing it versus not doing it is an obvious choice, but it's about the sacrifice of like, be uncomfortable now to live a comfortable life, directly after or tomorrow or later or whatever. Whereas a lot of people stay comfortable now, don't do the work, and inevitably stay uncomfortable until they go get fucked up.
Yeah.
So just knowing that there's always so much to discover and grow from, and really just continuing to find out that no matter where I'm at, who I'm with, what is going on or what isn't going on, I can be peaceful.
Love it. Man, that was dope. That was good. I like that.
Awesome.
I like that a lot. I did want to give a quick shout out earlier in the chat. I didn't have the chance to acknowledge it, but because someone was talking, I didn't want to be rude. But I wanted to shout out to Meredith, who was with us earlier from Phoenix. She's good people. She said it takes a special person to work with teens. They need all our support, and I absolutely agree with you. So thank you to all our folks out there who work with adolescents.
And to all those people who work with 42-year-olds and 54-year-olds.
Yeah.
And 24-year-olds and all of it. Actually, shout out to all the addiction professionals out there, whether you're licensed or you're a tech or you're a peer recovery person or you help run a Celebrate Recovery at a church. Like, I don't really care. I'm very agnostic. If you're out there trying to help alcoholics and addicts, we love you.
Yeah.
All y'all. So don't think we have any more questions in the chat. Jason, do you want to take us home?
So I would say out of all of this, when it comes to what I get the most out of staying clean and sober, it is 100% my serenity. I can just sit in a room, no TV on, no noise, no nothing, and just be with myself and relax and enjoy it. And I never thought in a million years that I would ever have any sort of peace of mind like that. So there's a quote that I heard one time, and it starts something like, "There's 1,000 ways in." How do you finish it, Joseph?
Well, hold on. We can't do that yet. We got to say thank you to everybody. So hold on.
All right, I dropped the bomb. Sorry.
So we're still working on format, y'all. We're gonna have a theme song next week, and we just got a new logo.
Thank you to everyone who has continued to watch and support and see us in our infancy, because in a couple of years we'll have like the best of, and Joseph will be accepting some sort of award, and we could look back on these times and laugh.
Thank you to our guests. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you for for taking your time out today. Thank you for sticking around.
Thanks for having me, man.
And being there for the next guy. Pam, thank you for your time. Thank you for sticking around. And I know you always show up for Recovery Unplugged. So
Blessed and honored, man. Blessed and honored. Thank you for asking me to be here.
Someday I will see that cookie jar collection in person. And
anytime you want, man. I might even cook you dinner. So and I make the
Oh.
best chocolate chip cookies in the world.
oh dang.
Joseph, we gotta make it down to Florida. For Pam's
We got to come up with an
Come on
excuse for
down.
Andrew Sawson to
We
pay
got
for
a
us to go to Florida.
convention in May, big time. Lots of people. Come on down.
All three of us.
Yeah, everybody, let's
Road
all
trip.
go. Thank you to everybody in the chat for joining us. If it was your first time, welcome. If you're coming back, thank you. Please like, follow, and share. As of yesterday or the day before, we now have audio uploaded. So you can get an audio version of this show on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Google Play, and on Anchor FM. Please go check us out. If it was your first time, you can go hear all the old episodes. And we're really excited that you guys are here with us, helping to build up this show. And so, as Jason was trying to say, there's 1,000 ways in, and there's 1,000 ways out. We hope you find yours. Good night.
Boom. Sick. Thank y'all.